The first time I saw Marcus Kane, I thought the Galactic Coalition had sent us a comedian by mistake. I am Commander Krell of the Vorantis Fleet, third in command of the Eastern Defensive Line, and I have seen 400 cycles of war. I have watched empires burn. I have commanded ships that could crack planets like eggs, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day a single human stepped off that transport shuttle and changed everything we thought we knew about combat. Let me back up. The war against the Krell Dominion had been grinding on for 67 years. 67 years of bloody stalemates, tactical retreats, and Pyrrhic victories that left both sides weaker than before. The Krell were ruthless, efficient, and multiplied faster than we could kill them. Their strategy was simple: overwhelm through numbers, drown us in bodies until we ran out of ammunition, energy, or hope. We were losing, slowly, painfully, inevitably losing. The Coalition Council, in their infinite wisdom, decided we needed fresh perspectives, new strategies. They reached out to species on the Outer Rim, looking for anyone with military experience who could offer something different. Most responses were polite refusals. Few sent analysts. The humans sent Marcus Kane. He arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when we held our strategy briefings, and Supreme Commander Vornik was already in a foul mood. We had lost another 3 outposts in the Helix sector. 4,000 souls, gone, vaporized. The Krell were pushing toward our supply lines, and we had maybe 6 weeks before the entire Eastern Front collapsed. The briefing room fell silent when Marcus walked in. He was not what any of us expected. Humans were relatively new to the galactic stage. Most of us had only seen them in database files. Short-lived species, fragile bodies, no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no psychic abilities. They seemed almost comically vulnerable compared to the rest of us. Marcus stood about 6 feet tall, which made him shorter than most species in the room. He had dark hair starting to gray at the temples, sharp green eyes, and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone and then weathered by too many storms. He wore a simple Coalition uniform with no decorations, no medals, just a single patch on his shoulder that read, Human Expeditionary Advisory Corps. Vornik looked him up and down with barely disguised contempt. "You are the expert Earth sends us." Marcus smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I am the one they could spare, sir." "Your credentials?" Vornik demanded. 23 years, Earth Marine Corps. 5 years, private military consulting. 3 years, strategic advisory for the Pan-Asian Defense Initiative. I have planned operations on 4 continents and in 7 different conflict zones. Marcus paused, then added with that same unsettling smile, "I have never lost a campaign I was allowed to finish." Earth conflicts. Vornik made it sound like an insult. Primitive tribal disputes. This is galactic warfare, human. The scales are beyond your comprehension. War is war, Commander. Marcus pulled out a datapad. The scales change, the technology changes, but the fundamentals, those stay the same, and from what I have read in your reports, you are losing because you are fighting the wrong war. The room erupted. 6 different officers started shouting at once. How dare this newcomer, this representative of a backwater species barely capable of faster-than-light travel, presume to lecture them on warfare? Vornik raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. "Explain yourself, human." Marcus walked to the hollow display at the center of the room. He pulled up a tactical map of the Helix sector. Red markers showed Krell positions. Blue showed ours. There was a lot more red than blue. You are fighting a defensive war against an enemy that outnumbers you 20-1. You fortify positions. They overwhelm them. You retreat. They advance. You reinforce. They push through. It is death by 1,000 cuts. We are aware of the situation, General Ixion growled. He was a Thraxian, 9 feet of muscle and armored plates. His people were born warriors. What we need are solutions, not observations. Solutions require accepting uncomfortable truths. Marcus replied. Truth 1. You cannot win a defensive war against this enemy. They have too many bodies. Truth 2. You cannot win a war of attrition. They breed faster than you can kill them. Truth 3. You have been fighting honorably, following the Galactic Convention on Warfare, limiting collateral damage, trying to preserve civilian infrastructure. Of course, Vornik said stiffly. We are not barbarians. In the Krell. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Are they following these conventions? Silence. Everyone knew the answer. They are burning civilian colonies. Marcus continued quietly. They are using biological weapons on non-military targets. They are executing prisoners. They are not playing by your rules, but you keep playing by them anyway because it makes you feel civilized. He turned to face the room. You want to win this war? Stop fighting fair. I felt my gills flutter in shock. Around the room, officers exchanged horrified glances. You suggest we abandon the conventions? Bornik asked slowly. Become like them? I suggest you fight to win, Marcus said. Not to win honorably, not to win cleanly, just to win. Because if you lose, all your honor and all your conventions will not mean a damn thing when the Krell are burning your homeworlds. General Ixion stood up. All 9 feet of him. I will not compromise my people's values because some human mercenary thinks ruthlessness is the answer. Marcus looked up at him without flinching. How many soldiers have died under your command this year, General? Ixion's faceplates darkened. That is none of your concern. 17,432. Marcus said softly. I read your casualty reports. 17,000 Thraxians who died because you were too honorable to do what was necessary. How many more are you willing to sacrifice for your values? How many more bodies will pile up before you admit that maybe, just maybe, your way is not working? For a moment I thought Ixion would attack him. The general's fists clenched. His breathing accelerated. But Marcus just stood there, calm, waiting. Finally, Bornik spoke. The council assigned you as an advisor, Mr. Kane. We will hear your proposals. But understand this, we are not humans. We do not share your species' apparent enthusiasm for barbarism. That smile again, cold as vacuum. Sir, you have not seen barbarism yet. But the Krell have, and they are about to see it again. The meeting continued for 3 more hours. Marcus presented his analysis of Krell tactics, logistics, and command structure. I had to admit, grudgingly, that he was thorough. He had studied every battle report, every intelligence brief, every scrap of data we had on the enemy, and he had found patterns we had missed. The Krell are not a monolithic entity, Marcus explained. They have a strict hierarchy. Queen clusters control regional forces. Kill a queen, and everything under her command loses coordination for approximately 48 hours. They become scattered, confused, easy to destroy. He highlighted several locations on the map. I have identified the locations of 7 queen clusters in the Eastern Front alone. Take them out simultaneously, and you will cripple a third of their offensive capacity. We know where the queens are, Admiral Cullith interjected. She was a Saurian, one of our best tactical minds. They are protected by massive defensive installations. We have tried direct assaults. The casualties were unacceptable because you attacked them directly, Marcus agreed, which is exactly what they expect. The Krell defense doctrine assumes frontal assaults, heavy shields, concentrated fire, but their sensor networks, rudimentary, their counterintelligence, almost non-existent. They rely on brute force, not subtlety. You propose infiltration? I heard myself ask. Marcus turned to me, and for the first time that cold smile became something almost genuine. Commander Threll, is it? I read about your work in the Gamma Offensive. Brilliant tactical adaptation under pressure. I felt my scales flush with surprise. You studied my campaigns? All of them. You think laterally. You improvise. You understand that battles are not won by following the manual. He gestured to the holodisplay. Yes, Commander. I propose infiltration. Small teams. Surgical strikes. We bypass their defenses entirely. We insert teams behind their lines, hit the queens when they are vulnerable, and extract before they know what happened. Impossible, General Ixion declared. The Krell would detect any insertion attempt. Their space is too heavily monitored by sensors designed to detect ships and large troop movements, Marcus countered. Not by sensors designed to detect small, stealthy insertion craft using terrain masking and electronic warfare. I reviewed your reconnaissance data. The Krell have blind spots in their coverage, natural phenomena, asteroid fields, nebula radiation that interferes with their detection grids. We exploit those blind spots. Vornik leaned forward. Even if we could insert teams, who would we send? This is a suicide mission. It is only suicide if we do it badly, Marcus replied. We send specialists. Commandos. People trained for exactly this kind of operation. And we support them with real-time intelligence, extraction teams standing by, and enough firepower to level a continent if things go wrong. You make it sound simple, Admiral Kelleth said dryly. It is not. No, Admiral, it is not simple. It is complicated, dangerous, and there is a very good chance some of our people will not come back. Marcus met her gaze. But it is possible, and it is better than the alternative, which is sitting here watching the Krell swallow another outpost every week until there is nothing left to defend. The room went quiet. I could see the calculations happening behind everyone's eyes. The risk assessment, the moral implications, the sheer audacity of what this human was proposing. Vornik finally spoke. If we do this, and I am not saying we will, who would plan the operations? I would, Marcus said simply. With Commander Threll's assistance. His tactical flexibility makes him ideal for coordinating dynamic operations. All eyes turned to me. Great, just wonderful. Supreme Commander, you are assigned to work with Mr. Kane, Vornik interrupted. Develop detailed operational plans for these proposed strikes. We will review them in 72 hours. If they are sound, we will bring them to the Council. He stood. But understand this, human, if this fails, if we lose people because of your strategies, I will personally throw you out an airlock. Are we clear? Perfectly clear, sir. Marcus nodded. I would expect nothing less. The briefing adjourned. Officers filed out, muttering to each other in various languages. I lingered, unsure what to make of this strange human who had just upended our entire strategic doctrine in a single meeting. Marcus packed up his datapad and walked over to me. Up close I could see the weariness in his eyes, the weight of experience. Commander Threll, I know you did not volunteer for this. No, I did not, I admitted, but Vorthing is right. Your tactical analysis is sound, reckless. Perhaps, but sound. Reckless is my speciality. That smile again. Tell me, Commander, how long have you been fighting the Krell? 12 years, I said. Since the first battle of Proxima Station. And in those 12 years, have your conventional tactics brought you any closer to victory? Wanted to argue, to defend our strategies. But I could not. No, I said quietly. We are losing ground every year. Then we have nothing to lose by trying something different. Marcus extended his hand, a human gesture of greeting. Shall we get to work? I reached out and clasped his hand, feeling the strange weakness of human bones, the warmth of mammalian blood. I hope you know what you are doing, Marcus Kane. So do I, Commander. He grinned. So do I. The next 72 hours were brutal. Marcus did not sleep. I am not sure he even ate. We worked around the clock in a secure planning room, mapping out 7 simultaneous strike operations against Krell clusters. He was absolutely relentless. Every detail mattered. Insertion vectors, extraction routes, contingency plans for contingency plans. He ran simulations until my eyes crossed, adjusting variables, calculating probabilities, refining tactics until they were as close to perfect as physics allowed. You are insane, I told him, around hour 60. You realize this, yes? Probably. He did not look up from his calculations. But insanity is just another word for thinking differently. We are planning to send 42 of our best operatives deep into enemy territory to assassinate 7 critical command nodes simultaneously. I said, if even one team fails, if even one queen survives, the entire operation collapses. The Krell will know what we attempted. They will reinforce their remaining queens. We will never get another chance. Correct. Marcus finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot but focused. Which is why we will not fail. How can you be so confident? Because I have done this before, Commander. Different enemy, different planet, but the same principle. Hit hard, hit fast, hit where they do not expect it. And most importantly, hit them all at once so they cannot adapt. He pulled up a timeline. Look, 0 hour is synchronized across all teams. Every strike happens within a 3-minute window. By the time the Krell realize they are under attack, 6 of their 7 queens will already be dead. The 7th will die before they can organize a response. And if our teams are discovered before 0 hour, then they abort and extract. No mission is worth losing everyone. Marcus stood up and stretched. But that is why we are using the best. People who can move like ghosts. People who understand that the greatest weapon is not firepower, it is surprise. We presented the plans to the senior staff. The room was skeptical, suspicious, but even General Extinction had to admit the operations were meticulously planned. Every contingency had been considered. Every risk had been mitigated as much as possible. Phoenix studied the hollow displays in silence for a long time. Finally, he looked at Marcus. "If this works, human, you will save thousands of lives. If it fails, you will have wasted our best operatives and handed the Krell a propaganda victory." "I am aware of the stakes, sir." "Are you?" Ornik's eyes narrowed. "Because it seems to me that you are very comfortable gambling with other people's lives." Marcus's face went cold. "Sir, I spent 23 years sending people into harm's way. Good people. Friends. Some of them did not come back. Do not presume to lecture me about the thought of command." The tension in the room could have powered a fusion reactor. Nobody breathed. Then Vortek nodded slowly. "The operations are approved. Commander Threll, you will oversee tactical coordination. Mr. Kane, you will advise, but you will also accompany the command team to the forward staging area. If this goes wrong, I want you close enough to see it firsthand." "Understood, sir." The strike teams were assembled within a week. 42 operatives from 6 different species. All volunteers, all elite. I briefed them personally on their objectives, and Marcus briefed them on tactics. I watched the operatives' faces as he spoke. Initial skepticism gave way to grudging respect as Marcus demonstrated a level of tactical knowledge that rivaled our best instructors. One operative, a young Vorantis named Kellis, raised his hand. "Sir, what do we do if we encounter unexpected resistance?" "You adapt," Marcus said simply. "War never goes according to plan. The mission is simple. Reach the Queen. Kill the Queen. Extract. How you accomplish that depends on what you find when you get there. Trust your training. Trust your team. Trust your instincts." Another operative, a Thraxian heavy weapons specialist named Gorath, asked, "What is your background, human? Why should we trust your tactics?" Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "On my home world, I led covert operations against an enemy that controlled 80% of the Pacific Rim. We were outnumbered 15-1. Outgunned. Operating in hostile territory with no support and no backup. We executed 37 deep penetration missions over 18 months. All successful. 0 casualties. The enemy started calling our unit the Ghost Protocol because they never saw us coming until it was too late." He paused. "That enemy surrendered 6 months later, not because we beat them in open battle, but because we made them afraid. We proved that nowhere was safe, that no command post was secure, that we could strike anywhere, anytime, and disappear before they could respond. That is what you are going to do to the Krell." The room was silent. Gorath nodded slowly. "I can work with that." The day of the operation arrived faster than I expected. The strike teams deployed from a forward staging base in the Talon Nebula. 7 ships, 7 teams, 7 targets. I stood in the command center with Marcus, watching the tactical feeds as our operatives made their approach runs. "Nervous?" Marcus asked quietly. "Terrified," I admitted. "You?" "Always am before an operation." He smiled slightly. "The day I stop being nervous is the day I should quit." The ships vanished into sensor shadows, exploiting the blind spots Marcus had identified. For 2 hours, we had nothing. No contact, no reports. Just silence and the knowledge that 42 lives were at risk because of plans I had helped create. Then the first report came in. Team 1 had reached their target. They were beginning their insertion. My heart's rate accelerated. Across the command center, staff officers watched their displays with laser focus. 5 minutes later, Team 2 reported in. Then 3. Then 4. All on schedule. All undetected. It was working. By all the ancient gods, it was actually work. 0 hour approached. 30 seconds. 20:10. "All teams, execute," Marcus said calmly into the command channel. For exactly 90 seconds, chaos reigned on the tactical display. 7 different firefights erupted simultaneously across 200,000 cubic kilometers of space. Energy readings spiked. Communications channels screamed with reports. I saw status indicators flashing red as our teams engaged Krell defenders. Then, one by one, confirmation signals came through. Target 1 eliminated. Target 2 eliminated. Target 4 eliminated. 3, 5, 6, 7. All confirmed. All queens dead. The command center erupted in cheers. Officers who had been skeptical hours ago were shouting, embracing, celebrating like we had already won the war. I felt my legs weaken with relief. We had done it. We had actually done it. Marcus just nodded quietly, still watching the displays. All teams commence extraction. Move fast. They will be organizing pursuit. He was right. Within minutes, Krell forces across the Eastern Front began to show signs of disorganization. Units that had been advancing suddenly stalled. Communication between ships became erratic, and in several sectors, Krell forces began retreating in confusion, falling back toward their supply lines. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. "Commander," Admiral Kelleth called out, "we are detecting massive disruptions in Krell command structures. They are pulling back from 6 different fronts simultaneously. It is a complete collapse of coordinated operations." Vornik appeared on the main display from his flagship. His usually stern face showed something I had never seen before, genuine surprise. "Mr. Kane, it appears your plan has succeeded beyond our projections." "Thank you, sir," Marcus replied. "But we are not finished yet. The Krell will adapt. They will promote new queens. We have maybe 48 hours before they restore command cohesion. I recommend we launch immediate offensives in the Helix sector while they are still reeling." "Agreed. I am authorizing fleet movements immediately." Vortek looked at me. "Commander Threll, coordinate with all sector commanders. I want every advantage pressed while we have momentum." "And under Kane, sir?" Marcus nodded. As the display blinked out, I turned to him. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," he corrected. "This was team effort, Commander. Over the next 3 days, we pushed the Krell back further than they had retreated in 5 years. We recaptured 7 outposts. We destroyed 3 major supply depots. We killed tens of thousands of Krell warriors who had been caught unprepared by the sudden loss of command coordination. It was the first major coalition victory in recent memory, and word spread fast. Other sectors wanted to replicate the success. They wanted Marcus Kane's advice, his strategies, his tactics. Within a week, Vortak summoned both of us to a formal briefing. The Supreme Commander looked tired but satisfied. "The Council has reviewed the operation's results. They are impressed. Very impressed." "Thank you, sir." However, Vortak continued, "this raises questions about our overall strategic approach. Mr. Kane, the Council wants to expand your advisory role. They want you to review operations across all fronts and provide recommendations for similar precision strikes." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That is a significant expansion of authority, sir. Are they certain they trust a human with that much influence?" "They trust results," Vortak said simply. "And you have delivered results. However, I should warn you. The Krell are already adapting. Intelligence reports indicate they are calling you something in their language." He pulled up a translation. "The closest approximation is extinction. They believe you are some kind of human death spirit sent to destroy them." I saw something flicker across Marcus's face. Not pride, something darker. "Let them believe it," he said quietly. "Fear is a weapon too." And that was when I realized what we had unleashed. This was not just a tactical advisor. This was someone who understood war at a level most species would never comprehend. Someone who had looked into the abyss and learned to use it. The Krell called him Extinction. Before this war ended, I suspected we all would. The problem with success is that everyone wants more of it. Within 2 weeks of what the media started calling the 7 Queens Massacre, Marcus Kane became the most requested advisor in the entire coalition fleet. Every sector commander wanted him. Every admiral wanted his input. Every general wanted to know the secret formula that had turned the tide against an enemy we had been losing to for 67 years. The secret formula, as I quickly learned, was that Marcus Kane did not sleep, did not quit, and did not care whose feelings he hurt in pursuit of victory. I was there when he told Admiral Kelleth that her entire defensive strategy was garbage. I was there when he informed General Ixion that the Thraxian concept of honor was actively killing his soldiers. I was there when he called Supreme Commander Vortek's logistics chain a disaster waiting to happen. And you know what the truly terrifying part was? He was right every single time. "Commander Threll," Marcus said one morning approximately 3 weeks after our first operation, "we need to talk about the Krell supply network." We were in the Strategic Planning Center, surrounded by hollow displays showing the entire Eastern Front. The Krell had recovered somewhat from losing their queens. They had promoted new command nodes, but they were still disorganized, still vulnerable. We had been pressing our advantage hard, and it showed. The red markers representing enemy positions had pulled back significantly from their previous high-water mark. What about their supply network? I asked, bringing up the relevant intelligence data. Marcus pointed to a cluster of systems near the galactic rim. The Krell get 90% of their war material from 3 massive industrial worlds here, and here. They have been operating these facilities for decades, churning out weapons, ships, armor, everything they need to sustain their war effort. We have been bombing their forward supply depots, disrupting their logistics in theater, but we are treating symptoms, not the disease. I felt my scales prickle with unease. Those industrial worlds are deep in Krell-controlled space, hundreds of light-years behind their front lines. The defenses there are beyond anything we have encountered. Planetary shields, orbital defense platform, fleet concentrations that dwarf anything we could throw at them. Correct. Marcus smiled, that cold smile I had come to recognize as his planning face. Which is why we are not going to attack them directly. Then what are you suggesting? He pulled up a schematic of Krell industrial processes. The Krell have a vulnerability they do not even realize. All 3 industrial worlds depend on a single rare element for their manufacturing processes. Element designation thorium-9, found naturally on only 7 planets in known space. The Krell control 3 of those planets. They mine the thorium, ship it to their industrial worlds, and use it in every major weapons system they produce. I am familiar with thorium-based munitions, I said. They are devastatingly effective, right? But here is the thing. Thorium-9 has a half-life of approximately 90 days. You cannot stockpile it long-term. The Krell have to constantly mine it, constantly ship it, constantly process it. Their entire war machine depends on a steady flow of this one resource. Marcus highlighted shipping routes on the display. I have been tracking their supply convoys for the past 2 weeks. 3 major convoy routes, heavily defended, running on predictable schedules. They move approximately 10,000 tons of refined thorium every 6 days. 10,000 tons, I repeated. That is enough to produce weapons for 100 battle groups. Exactly. Marcus leaned forward. Now, what happens if those convoys stop arriving? I stared at the display, my mind racing through the implications. Their industrial output would collapse. Without thorium, they could not manufacture new weapons. They could not resupply their fleets. Within months, their entire war effort would grind to a halt. Bingo. Marcus pulled up tactical overlays. I am not proposing we attack the industrial worlds themselves. I am proposing we cut off their thorium supply. We hit the convoys. We hit the mining operations. We hit the processing facilities. We strangle their war machine at the source. The convoys are protected by battle groups. I protested. We would need significant fleet assets to engage them. No, we would not. Marcus shook his head. We do not need to destroy the convoys. We just need to make them not want to run. What would happen if we planted mines along the convoy raids? What would happen if we deployed hunter-killer teams to ambush vulnerable sections? What would happen if we made every single thorium shipment a roll of the dice? They would have to divert military assets to convoy protection, I said slowly. Assets they currently use on the front lines. And even then they would lose ships. They would lose cargo. They would lose time. Marcus highlighted several strategic choke points. The Krell think in terms of brute force. They protect their convoys the same way they fight their battles. Overwhelming firepower, massive escort fleets, but that makes them predictable. And predictable means vulnerable. I studied the plans for a long moment. This would require approval from the Council. It is a major shift in strategic focus. Then we better make a convincing presentation. Marcus started compiling data. Because if we do not cut off their supply lines, everything we have accomplished so far will only buy us a few months. The Krell will adapt. They will reinforce, and we will be right back where we started, except we will have shown them our best tricks. He was right, of course. He was always right. It was infuriating. The council meeting was contentious. Several members argued that we should maintain pressure on the front lines, continue pushing the Krell back through conventional means. Others pointed out that our fleet was stretched thin, that we could not knight at the current operational tempo indefinitely. Marcus listened to all the arguments without interrupting. Then when the debate started going in circles, He stood up. May I speak? Counselor Draven, a Saurian elder who had been skeptical of human involvement from the beginning, gestured impatiently. If you have something useful to contribute, Mr. Kane, please do so. How many soldiers do we lose every day fighting the Krell? Marcus asked quietly. The room went silent. Nobody wanted to say the number out loud. 217, Marcus answered his own question. On average, the Coalition loses 217 soldiers every single day. That is over 6,000 per month, over 70,000 per year. We have been fighting this war for 67 years. Do the math. How many lives have been spent trying to defeat an enemy that just keeps coming? We honor their sacrifice, Counselor Draven said stiffly. I am sure their families appreciate that, Marcus replied, and his voice was sharp enough to cut steel. But honor does not bring them back. Honor does not win wars. Results win wars. And the result we need is for the Krell to stop having the resources to fight us. Your proposal is ambitious, another counselor interjected. But the risk is substantial. If we commit our fleet assets to this operation and it fails, we leave our defensive lines vulnerable. If we do not commit to this operation, we guarantee a longer war, Marcus countered. More casualties, more lost territory, more years of grinding attrition until either they overwhelm us or we collapse from exhaustion. He pulled up casualty projections. I ran the number. If we continue fighting at our current pace, the Coalition will reach a critical manpower shortage in approximately 11 years. We simply will not have enough soldiers left to hold the line. The Krell will win by default. And your operation prevents this? Draven challenged. My operation gives us a fighting chance. Marcus met his gaze without blinking. Cut off their resources, and we end this war in 2 years instead of 11. Maybe sooner. Maybe we force them to the negotiating table when they realize they cannot sustain their military. Maybe we break their will to fight, but we will never know unless we try. The vote was close. Very close. But in the end, the council approved the operation. Marcus was given authority to coordinate strikes against Krell's supply lines across all fronts. That was when things got complicated. The first convoy raid went perfectly. A small strike force ambushed a lightly defended thorium transport in the outer veil, destroyed 3 cargo haulers, killed the escorts, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. Total Coalition casualties 0. Total Krell losses. Enough thorium to arm 50 cruisers. The second raid also succeeded. So did the third, fourth, and fifth. Within a month, the Krell had lost nearly 40% of their thorium shipments. Their industrial output was already showing signs of strain. Then came the 6th raid. And everything went wrong. I was in the command center when the distress signal came through. Strike Force Talon had engaged a convoy near the Helix border. But the convoy had been a trap. The Krell had anticipated our tactics and set up an ambush of their own. 20 Coalition ships were caught in a killing field, surrounded by enemy battlecruisers. Get me a tactical feed, I barked at the communications officer. The display lit up with a nightmare. Our ships were fighting desperately, but they were outnumbered 5-1. I watched 2 destroyers die in rapid succession, their hulls cracking open like eggs under concentrated fire. Marcus appeared at my side, his face grim. They adapted faster than I expected. We need to send reinforcements, I said. There is no time. By the time reinforcements arrive, Strike Force Talon will be gone. Marcus studied the tactical display. Where is their command ship? The carrier Valiant Storm. Commander Rexus is leading the formation. Marcus grabbed the communications console. Get me Commander Rexus. Priority channel. A moment later, a Thraxian face appeared on the screen. Commander Rexus looked like he had been through a meat grinder. His armor was scorched. His face plates cracked. Behind him I could see the bridge of his ship shaking from weapon impacts. This is Rexus. We are taking heavy casualties, requesting immediate support. Commander, this is Marcus Kane. You are not getting support in time. You need to break contact immediately. We are surrounded, Rexus snarled. If we try to run, they will pick us apart. If you stay and fight, they will kill you all, Marcus shot back. Listen to me very carefully. You see that asteroid cluster at bearing 274? Rexus checked his navigation display. Yes. What about it? Take your entire formation and punch through toward it. Full burn. Do not stop to engage. Do not try to fight your way out. Just run. That is coward behavior, Rexus protested. We are Thraxians. We do not flee. You want to die honorably or live strategically? Marcus demanded. Your choice, Commander, but make it fast, because you have about 3 minutes before they finish repositioning for a kill shot. I could see Rexus struggling with the decision. His training, his culture, his entire belief system said to stand and fight, but he could also see his ships dying around him. Finally, he growled, "All ships, new heading 274. Emergency acceleration. We are breaking contact." "Smart man," Marcus muttered. He switched to a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels in Sector 7. This is Strategic Command. We have a strike force in retreat heading for the Helix asteroids. I need every ship with weapons charged to converge on those coordinates now." Admiral Kelleth's voice came through. "What are you planning, Kane? The Krell think they have won. They will pursue Rexus into the asteroid field, thinking they are finishing off a wounded prey. But what they do not know is that we are going to turn that asteroid field into an ambush site. Get me 6 hunter squadrons and a mine layer in position within 12 minutes. "That is impossible," Kelleth said flatly. "Then make it possible, Admiral. Because if we do not, 20 good ships and 3,000 people die today. The next 15 minutes were the longest of my life." I watched Strike Force Talon racing toward the asteroids with Krell pursuers right behind them. I watched our hunter squadrons scrambling to reach the intercept point. I watched the mine layer dropping proximity charges throughout the asteroid cluster. And I watched Marcus coordinate it all with the calm precision of someone orchestrating a symphony. When the Krell pursuers entered the asteroid field, everything happened at once. The proximity mines detonated. The hunter squadrons attacked from multiple vectors. Strike Force Talon reversed course and engaged from their supposedly retreating position. The Krell found themselves in the same trap they had set for us. It was brutal. It was efficient. And it was absolutely devastating. When the engagement ended, we had lost 4 ships from Strike Force Talon. The Krell had lost 37, including 2 battlecruisers and their entire pursuit force. Commander Rexus appeared on the screen again, this time with something like awe on his face. "How did you know they would pursue us into the asteroids?" "Because that is what predators do," Marcus said simply. "They chase wounded prey. It is instinct. You just needed to look wounded enough to be tempting." "You used us as bait," Rexus said slowly. "I used you as survivors," Marcus corrected. "There is a difference. Bait gets sacrificed. You made it out alive with most of your formation intact, and we turned a defeat into a victory." "Take the win, Commander." After the channel closed, I turned to Marcus. "That was extraordinarily risky." "War is risk," he replied, "but calculated risk is better than certain death." The raids continued. The Krell tried to adapt their convoy strategies. They increased escorts. They varied routes. They set more traps. But Marcus always seemed to be one step ahead. It was like watching someone play a game they had already won in their mind, just executing the moves to make it reality. Not everyone appreciated his methods. General Extinction filed 3 formal complaints about Marcus's disregard for proper military protocol. Admiral Kelleth argued that his tactics were too aggressive, too willing to accept risk. Even Vornik expressed concerns about the long-term sustainability of such intense operations. Marcus listened to all the criticism with the same patient expression. Then he showed them updated casualty figures. Coalition losses had dropped by 60% since we started targeting supply lines. 60%. Thousands of soldiers were alive who would have died in conventional operations. The complaints stopped after that. Results have a way of silencing critics. 4 months into the supply interdiction campaign, Krell industrial output had collapsed by 75%. Their fleet was running out of munitions. Their ships were breaking down without replacement parts. Entire battle groups were being withdrawn from frontline service because they simply could not maintain combat readiness. We were winning, actually genuinely winning. Then the Krell did something desperate. Something horrible. Something that made me understand why humans call Marcus Kane Extinction. Intelligence reports came in from the outer colonies. The Krell had attacked 3 civilian stations in retaliation for our supply raids. Not military targets, civilian populations. They had killed over 200,000 non-combatants in coordinated strikes designed to force us to negotiate. The council was in chaos. Some members wanted to respond with similar strikes against Krell civilian targets. Others argued for restraint, for maintaining our moral high ground. The debate raged for hours, going nowhere, accomplishing nothing, while the bodies of innocent civilians cooled in the void. Marcus sat through the entire debate without saying a word. His face was a mask, unreadable, terrifying in its stillness. Finally, Councillor Draven addressed him directly. "Mr. Kane, you have been suspiciously silent. Do you have nothing to say about this atrocity?" Marcus stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was soft, gentle, even, which somehow made it more frightening than if he had been shouting. "Counselor, do you know what total war is?" "Explain," Raven said warily. "Total war is when the distinction between military and civilian targets ceases to exist, when entire populations become part of the war machine, when victory requires not just defeating the enemy's army, but breaking their will to fight at any level." Marcus looked around the room. "The Krell have just declared total war. They have stated explicitly that they will target our civilians if we continue hurting their military. This is a test. They want to see if we blink. And what do you propose?" Another counselor asked. "I propose we show them what happens when humans stop blinking." Marcus pulled up a star chart. The Krell Dominion has 12 major population centers, worlds with billions of civilians. They believe these worlds are untouchable because attacking them would make us as bad as they are. They are wrong. The room erupted in protest. Officers and counselors shouting over each other, accusations of barbarism, demands for his removal, threats of court-martial. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. Then he continued, as calm as if he was discussing the weather. "I am not proposing we kill civilians. I am proposing we make the Krell leadership believe we will. We conduct a precision strike on their most heavily defended population center. We bypass their military installations entirely. We hit a symbolic target, something that proves we can reach anywhere we want. Their Capitol building, their central government complex. Something that matters to them psychologically. That would be an act of terrorism," General Exion growled. "No, General. That would be a demonstration of capability." Marcus met his gaze. "The Krell attacked our civilians because they thought we were weak. They thought our morality was a vulnerability. I am suggesting we show them that our morality is a choice, not a weakness, that we could hurt them in ways they cannot imagine, but we choose not to. Yet." The key word being yet. "You want to threaten them," Vornik said slowly. "I want to give them a reason to reconsider their strategy." Marcus highlighted the Krell homeworld. "If we prove we can strike at the heart of their civilization, they will have to divert massive resources to protecting their population centers, resources they desperately need on the front lines. And more importantly, their leadership will understand that escalation is a game they cannot win." The debate continued for another 3 hours. In the end, a modified version of Marcus's plan was approved. We would conduct a single precision strike against a Krell government facility on their primary colony world. No civilian casualties, no collateral damage, just a message: we can reach you, anywhere, anytime. Planning the operation took 2 weeks. It was the most complex mission anyone had ever attempted. Infiltrating a heavily defended colony world deep in enemy space, hitting a target in the middle of a major city, extracting without being detected or destroyed. The margin for error was microscopic. Marcus selected the team personally. 15 operatives. The best of the best. I watched him brief them, and I finally understood what made him different from every other commander I had served under. He did not lie to them. He did not sugarcoat the danger. He laid out exactly what they were walking into, exactly what could go wrong, exactly how many things had to go right for them to survive. And then he asked if they were willing to do it anyway. All 15 volunteered. The operation launched on a Tuesday, fitting somehow, full circle back to where this all started. I sat in the command center with Marcus, watching tactical feeds as a stealth ship carried our team deep into Krell space. No communications, no updates, just silence and faith. 12 hours after insertion, the first reports came through. The team had reached the surface. They were moving toward the target, undetected so far. 6 hours after that, 0 hour arrived. The target building, a massive government complex that coordinated Krell military logistics across 3 sectors, suddenly experienced catastrophic structural failure. 3 precision charges, placed exactly where Marcus had calculated, brought the entire edifice down in a controlled collapse. No civilian casualties, no collateral damage. Just 800 Krell military planners and logistics officers buried under 10 million tons of rubble. The extraction went smoothly. Our team was off the planet and back to the stealth ship within an hour. By the time Krell security figured out what had happened, our people were halfway back to Coalition space. The psychological impact was immediate. Krell military communications lit up with panic. If the Coalition could strike at their government facilities, nowhere was safe. Fleet deployments shifted. Defensive formations tightened around population centers. And most importantly, attacks on Coalition civilian targets stopped completely. Marcus had been right again. The demonstration of capability had been enough. The Krell understood that escalation would only hurt them more. Within a month we received the first communication from the Krell High Command. They wanted to negotiate. The war did not end overnight. Negotiations took another 8 months. There were ceasefire violations. There were trust issues. There were moments when it seemed like the whole peace process would collapse. But eventually, terms were agreed upon. The Krell would withdraw from contested territories. The Coalition would cease operations against their supply lines. Both sides would exchange prisoners and establish neutral buffer zones. After 67 years, the war was finally over. We had won, not through overwhelming force, not through superior technology, but through strategy, through understanding that wars are fought in minds as much as on battlefields. The official victory celebration was held on the Coalition flagship. Officers from a dozen species gathered to commemorate the peace treaty. Medals were awarded. Speeches were given. Toasts were raised. Marcus Kane attended for exactly 20 minutes, accepted a commendation from Supreme Commander Vornik, and then disappeared. I found him an hour later in an observation deck, staring out at the stars alone. "Not a fan of parties?" I asked, settling beside him. "Not a fan of celebrating death," he replied quietly. "Even necessary death. You saved countless lives," I pointed out. "The war would have continued for years without your interventions. Millions would have died." "Millions did die," Marcus said. "Just different millions, in different ways, at different times. War is math. Commander, you calculate acceptable losses. You trade lives for objectives. You convince yourself it is worth it because the alternative is worse. But at the end of the day, people are still dead because of decisions you made." I had never heard him sound so tired, so human. "Is that why you do it? Take on these advisory roles? Fight other people's wars?" "I do it because I am good at it." Marcus finally looked at me. "I understand how to hurt people efficiently. I understand how to break things that seem unbreakable. I understand war at a level most people will never comprehend, and someone needs to, because if the people who understand war do not step up, then wars get fought by people who do not understand them, and those wars last longer, cost more, hurt worse." "The Krell call you Extinction," I said. "Do you know why?" "Because I end things," Marcus replied. "I do not fight to win battles. I fight to end wars. Quickly, efficiently, with the minimum casualties possible on both sides. Sometimes that means being ruthless. Sometimes that means doing things that keep me awake at night. But it also means that wars end instead of dragging on for generations." We sat in silence for a while, watching ships move across the starfield. Finally, I asked the question I had been wondering about since the day we met. "What will you do now? The war is over. Will you go back to Earth?" Marcus shook his head. "Already got my next assignment. There is a conflict brewing in the Outer Rim, border dispute between two species. Could escalate into another regional war. The Coalition wants me to advise both sides, see if we can find a diplomatic solution before shooting starts. And if diplomacy fails, then I will teach them the same lesson I taught the Krell." Marcus stood up. "That war is expensive. That victory is possible. And that sometimes the fastest way to peace is showing people exactly how bad war can get." He started to leave, then paused. "Thank you, Commander Threll, for trusting me when nobody else did, for taking chances on tactics that seemed insane. You are a good officer. Better than most I have worked with. Will I see you again?" I asked. "Probably not." Marcus smiled slightly. "I tend to move on once the shooting stops, but if you ever need someone to end something that seems impossible to end, you know where to find me." He walked away and I never saw Marcus Kane again, but I heard stories. Every species in the coalition had stories about the human advisor who showed up when situations seemed hopeless. The one who turned defeats into victories, the one who understood that wars were not about fighting, they were about ending. Some called him a hero, others called him a monster. The Krell still called him Extinction, but I called him something different. I called him necessary, because someone needed to be the person who made the hard calls. Someone needed to be the person who did what was required instead of what was easy. Someone needed to understand that sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them first, faster, and more efficiently than your enemy expects. Marcus Kane was that someone, and the galaxy was safer because of it, even if safety came with a price. Years later, I retired from active service. I took a teaching position at the Coalition War College, training the next generation of officers. On my first day, a young cadet asked me what the most important lesson I learned in the war was. I thought about everything I had seen, all the battles, all the strategies, all the victories and defeats. But in the end, only one answer made sense. The most important lesson, I told him, is that war is not about winning. It is about ending. And sometimes to end something, you need someone willing to be called a monster. The cadet looked confused. So I told him about a human named Marcus Kane, about the man the Krell called Extinction, about how one advisor from a species barely known to the galaxy changed everything we thought we understood about warfare. I told him the truth, that heroes are not the people who fight the cleanest wars. Heroes are the people who end wars before they consume everyone, and sometimes those people need to do terrible things for the right reasons. The cadet asked if I thought Marcus Kane was a hero. I smiled and said, I think he was exactly what we needed, exactly when we needed it. Whether that makes him a hero or something else, I will let you decide, because that was the thing about Marcus Kane. He did not care what people called him. He cared about results. He cared about ending conflicts. He cared about making sure that the people under his command went home alive. And in the end, is that not what war should be about? Not glory, not honor, not revenge. Just bringing people home, just ending the fighting as quickly and efficiently as possible. Just making sure that fewer people die tomorrow than died yesterday. That was Marcus Kane's gift to us. The understanding that war is not a contest. It is a problem to be solved. And sometimes the solution is someone willing to be called Extinction, if it means extinction is what the war itself faces. I never saw him again after that night on the observation deck. But sometimes, late at night, I would look up at the stars and wonder where he was, what war he was ending, what impossible situation he was making possible, what species was learning that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or numbers or strength, but the ability to understand conflict at its most fundamental level. The Krell were not the last species to learn that lesson, but they were the first, and their name for him spread across the galaxy like a warning, like a promise, like a prophecy. Extinction. Not because he ended species, but because he ended wars. And sometimes, that is exactly what the galaxy needs.